My parents were about to kill me, and I was lying wide awake when they decided. I didn't know it yet, but something deep inside me already felt it. Cold light burned through my eyelids as I came to. Machines whispered beside me, steady and mechanical. My body felt wrong, heavy, distant, like it didn't fully belong to me anymore. Tubes were taped into my arms. My throat was dry. I tried to move and realized I couldn't lift my hands. A hospital. Memory flickered back in pieces. My brother Liam driving. Me staring out the window. A scream. Metal folding in on itself. Before I could speak, the door opened. My parents walked in. And the moment I saw their faces, my stomach tightened. They didn't rush toward me. They didn't cry. They didn't even look relieved. They stood there watching. "She's awake," my mother said quietly to the doctor. Not to me, the doctor smiled kindly. "You're very lucky. The crash caused massive internal injuries. We had to remove one of her kidneys to save her life, but she made it." One of my kidneys. My mom's eyes flicked to mine, then back to the doctor. "And the other one?" she asked. The question was too fast, too sharp. "It's functioning," the doctor said. "She'll live a normal life with just one." My mother's lips pressed into a thin line, not in worry, but in calculation. I swallowed. "Where's Liam?" "He's okay," my father said quickly. "Minor injuries." Then, under his breath, "You're the one who complicated everything." They still didn't come closer. Over the next few days, I noticed things I couldn't unsee. They never sat by my bed. They always stayed near the door. They kept asking doctors questions that made no sense. How long will she be sedated? When can she be transferred? If she can't speak, who signs for her? Once, I caught my mother staring at me while she thought I was asleep. Her eyes weren't soft. They were evaluating. Like I was a problem she needed to solve. That night, the hallway outside my room was quiet. The machines hummed softly. I was awake, staring at the ceiling when I heard familiar voices beyond the door. My parents, and a doctor. "If we took her remaining kidney," my mother whispered. My heart slammed. "That would be fatal," the doctor replied. "She already lost one." "But Liam's kidneys are failing," my father said. "The doctors told us he won't last much longer without a transplant." The room felt suddenly too small. "So medically?" my mom asked. "It can be done." The doctor sounded stunned. "You're talking about killing your daughter." "She's already limited," my mother replied coldly. "She won't be able to do much in life anyway. At least this way she'd finally be useful." I pressed my hand against my mouth to stop myself from making a sound. They weren't choosing Liam over me. They were planning to erase me. "To save our son," my father added quietly. I lay there, completely still, pretending to be unconscious while my own parents discussed taking my last organ like it was theirs to claim. That was the moment something inside me broke. I wasn't their daughter. I was inventory, and they were waiting for the right moment to take what they needed. They thought I was unconscious, but 3 minutes later, I did something that would turn their plan into a nightmare. 3 minutes later, I pressed the nurse call button. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure it would give me away. I forced my face to stay slack, my breathing shallow, the way someone still half unconscious would look. When the nurse stepped inside, I let my eyes flutter open. "I don't feel safe," I whispered. She froze, not confused, not impatient, alarmed. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "My parents," I said quietly. "They were just outside my door. They were talking about taking my kidney." Her eyes widened. "What?" "They said it would kill me." For half a second, she looked like she didn't want to believe it. Then she looked at me again, pale, wired to machines, barely able to move, and something shifted. "Stay right here," she said, already backing out. She returned with another nurse, then a doctor. The room filled with low, urgent voices. They asked me to repeat everything. So I did, every word, every threat, every plan. The doctor's jaw tightened when I finished. He left without explaining why. 10 minutes later, 2 security guards were standing outside my door. And my parents were gone. They tried to come back. I heard my mother screaming in the hallway. I heard my father shouting about consent and family rights. Then I heard something else. No, the hospital had cut them off. They were no longer allowed near me. Not to speak to me. Not to sign for me. Not to touch me. When my mother tried to push past the nurses, security grabbed her. "She belongs to us," she screamed. "That kidney belongs to my son." That one word changed everything. Belongs, that wasn't desperation, that was ownership. A social worker was brought in. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp. I told her everything again. When I finished, she didn't hesitate. "What they planned is illegal," she said, "and we're going to stop it." My medical file was locked. my parents were removed from all authority over me, and the hospital turned over its security audio, the hallway recording that captured their voices. Their plan, their intent. A judge listened to it 2 days later. That was all it took. I was placed under legal protection. My parents were banned from contacting me. They were being investigated for attempted medical coercion. The people who had owned my childhood had just lost their power. Liam never came, not to ask if I was okay, not to say he didn't want my kidney, not to apologize, nothing, and that silence told me everything. When I was discharged, I didn't go home. I went somewhere they couldn't reach me, somewhere safe, somewhere I could rebuild myself without their hands around my throat. They thought they had almost won. They didn't realize something far worse had happened. They had just created the woman who would one day take away their money, their reputation, and the future they had sacrificed me for. Because years later, when my brother needed a job to survive, he walked straight into my office and finally understood what they'd tried to do to me. Years passed, quietly, deliberately. I didn't heal by forgetting. I healed by building. I changed my name. I erased every legal connection to my parents. I worked while I studied, slept while others partied, and kept climbing when no one was watching. Because one day, the world would turn. By 24, I was no longer the girl in a hospital bed. I was an executive, a co-owner of a fast-growing healthcare tech company, the kind that decided who got hired and who didn't. Then one morning, I saw a name in our recruitment system. Liam, my brother, the golden child. He had no idea I was alive, let alone powerful. He thought I had disappeared into the system, that the girl they tried to erase had simply vanished. I didn't delete his application. I scheduled him. When he walked into the boardroom, he was relaxed, confident, smiling like someone who had always expected life to bend in his favor. Then he saw me, his face drained of color. "You," he whispered. "You're alive." I leaned back in my chair. "Alive," I said calmly, "and apparently in charge of your future." His hands started to tremble. You're the COO." "Yes," I said, "of the company you're begging to join." He forced a weak smile. "I didn't know it was you. I need this job." "Need it," I repeated softly. Things haven't been going well," he said. Of course they hadn't. I picked up his resume and tapped it against the table. "Your grades are average, your experience is thin, but your entitlement, still impressive." He swallowed. "I didn't know what Mom and Dad were planning," he said quickly. Then quieter, "I didn't want to know, that was worse. They wanted to take my kidney," I said, "without my consent, to save you. They said I was useful." Silence filled the room. "You never came to see me," I added. "Not once." His eyes dropped. "Tell me something, Liam," I said, leaning forward. "How does it feel to sit across from the sister you were willing to live without?" He whispered. "I just need a chance." I smiled. "No," I said softly. "You already had one." But what I did to him next didn't just cost him the job, it erased every future he thought he deserved. Liam didn't get the job. That was the smallest thing I took from him. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I simply smiled and told HR to flag his profile. Then I did something far more effective. I forwarded his resume to every partner firm we worked with a note. "Conflict of interest. Please do not hire." In our industry, that was a death sentence. Within a week, Liam's phone stopped ringing. Within a month, every application he sent disappeared into silence. He didn't understand what was happening, only that every door was closing. And behind every door was me. But I wasn't finished. My parents still thought I was gone. Still thought their mistake had faded into the system. So I made sure they remembered. I anonymously tipped a financial compliance agency about my father's company, the same company they had always bragged about. The one they were so desperate to protect they were willing to trade my life for it. An audit followed, then another. And then the truth came out. Tax evasion, false reporting, hidden accounts. Their house was seized, their assets frozen, their reputation shredded. My mother went from bragging about her perfect son to begging relatives for help. Liam moved back into their collapsing home, angry, broke, and desperate. And for the first time in his life, he was powerless. They finally found me. A letter arrived at my office. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. They were drowning. They begged for forgiveness, for money, for help. They called me their daughter again. I wrote back one sentence. "You used me when I was unconscious. Now you can live with the consequences while you're awake." I never heard from them again. And the best part? I didn't ruin them out of rage. I ruined them out of justice. They traded my life for their future. so I took their future. But the one thing they never expected was that the world would soon find out exactly what they had tried to do to me. They thought losing their money was the worst thing that could happen. They were wrong. Money can be rebuilt, reputation cannot. I didn't expose them right away. I waited until they were already weak, until the audits, the debt, and the silence from their friends had stripped them of their power. Then I released the truth. Not publicly, not emotionally, professionally, through legal channels. The hospital's ethics board had never closed my case. The hallway recording my parents' voices calmly discussing whether killing me would be worth it still existed. So I authorized its release. Within days, it was part of a medical ethics investigation, then a civil case, then a permanent record. My parents were no longer just unlucky. They were documented. Hospitals flagged them. Social services flagged them. Organ transplant registries flagged them. They were officially labeled high-risk guardians, people who could not be trusted with another human being's life. My mother tried to fight it. My father tried to deny it, but you can't argue with your own recorded voice. The story spread quietly at first, then everywhere it mattered. Doctors knew, lawyers knew, their church knew, their neighbors knew. They became invisible. No one wanted to be associated with parents who had tried to harvest their own child. Liam lost more than a job. He lost his story. He was no longer the golden son. He was the boy whose parents tried to kill his sister for him. Every interview ended the same way. Awkward smiles, polite rejection, silence, and me, I didn't celebrate. I stood in my apartment, overlooking the city, reading the final legal notice that confirmed their permanent restrictions. They could never again consent for another person's body. They could never erase what they tried to do to me. I finally understood something I had never known as a child. I was never weak. I was just outnumbered. And now, I wasn't. They thought a hospital bed was the end of my story. But it was just the place where I took my life back. And that's something no one will ever be able to take from me again.